I'm Lucia Leone. I am a faculty member and researcher here at the University at Buffalo School of Public Health and Health Professions. And I'd like to welcome you to the third annual Mobile Market Summit. So the Mobile Market Summit is an opportunity to bring together mobile market practitioners, researchers, students, funders, and anyone else who's interested in food access programming. So for those of you who have not been with us for the beginning, I'll give you a little bit of history. Our first Mobile Market Summit was a little bit of happenstance. Our team here in the Community Health and Interventions Lab at the University at Buffalo was planning a training for some of our partners. And we were bringing a bunch of mobile market practitioners to Buffalo, and we found out that there was another group in St. Louis trying to plan to bring together some mobile markets. And we said, hey, let's combine forces. And we ended up bringing over 100 people to Buffalo in March of 2019. Last year, we had decided we were going to host it again here in Buffalo, but as you can imagine, with the pandemic, like most folks, we ended up in an abbreviated online format last year. So this year, we were a little hesitant to plan a completely virtual summit, but really decided we needed to keep up the tradition of having an annual summit. And we're really hoping we can be back in person again next year. But there are some benefits to the virtual format. A testament to that is we now have over 175 people registered from across North America, which is really wonderful. We're hoping next year we can expand that, maybe even to include some other continents, which would be really fortunate. So we have a bit of a shorter summit this year, but we are going to continue to have ways to engage over the next year through webinars and other training and networking opportunities as we have had over the past year as well. So I'd like to take some time to thank our sponsors. This summit is presented in part by the University at Buffalo School of Public Health and Health Professions. Without their support, we would not be able to do the work that we do. We're also sponsored by the Farmers Truck and the Highmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Western New York. Our Veggie Van team, which is hosting the summit, is also funded by the National Cancer Institute, the Food Lion Feeds Charitable Foundation, the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation, and the AARP Foundation. So I mentioned our Veggie Van team. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on me and the team so you can get a sense of who we are and why we're doing this work. So we do research focused on developing and evaluating sustainable organizational and community-based programs to increase access to healthy food, and particularly focus on retail-based interventions such as mobile markets. Personally, I also own my own business called Fresh Fix, which offers home delivery of local produce and New York produced foods. And as part of that organization, we support mobile markets and food access programs by helping with sourcing and packing food for them and using our member donations to subsidize the cost of foods for mobile market customers. I had previous to that work, I had started a nonprofit organization that ran a mobile market called the Veggie Van. And while we no longer run our own mobile market, my team has transitioned to providing training and technical assistance to mobile markets and evaluating the effectiveness and implementation of mobile markets. We developed the Veggie Van Mobile Market Toolkit, which I know many of you have used, and that's based on our research with mobile markets. And we also partner with many of you on current projects, which we'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, and how you can others can get involved in training opportunities as well. So, of course, this summit would not be possible without the help of the Veggie Van team that I mentioned here at the University at Buffalo. So those who were involved in organizing the summit included Anne Lally, who's been leading the charge. Anne had left us from November to just up until March to go on maternity leave for her, and just had a new son, Soren. So congratulations, Anne. Part of the reason why we pushed the summit a little bit back into April as opposed to March when we previously had it. So Anne came back from maternity leave and got thrown right back into doing all the organization. So we appreciate her leadership on this. I'd also like to thank Leah Vermont, who graciously took over while Anne was out on maternity leave. Leah is going to be presenting more about what our team does tomorrow. She's our Assistant Director of Community Outreach and Partnerships, and we'll be talking more about all the partnerships we have with mobile markets. I'd like to thank Cooper Rohan, who started last month and got thrown into figuring out how to use this new virtual format through Hey Summit and Remo, and he's been diligently working to try and get all of that piece organized, and I'm hoping we haven't driven him crazy with it. Please don't quit, Cooper. Thank you so much for stepping up and doing that. I'd like to thank Sue Arnold, who works behind the scenes, making all of this possible through from working with HR to doing all the financial piece and everything else that has to be handled to make this work possible. Also from our team working with us are Christina Kasperzak and Rosa Romero. You'll hear from Christina in a second as she introduces our keynote. And lastly, I'd really like to thank Derek Farkas, who is our e-learning support specialist here at the University at Buffalo School of Public Health and Health Professions, who's given a lot of time to helping us figure out how to host a virtual summit and helped with the Zoom and all of the technology pieces. So thank you all for your contributions, and hope I'm not missing folks from my team, but thank you to all of you. So the content of the summit and the development of the sessions themselves would not have been possible without the Summit Planning Committee, which included Megan Wong from About Fresh, Elise Skeetis from Activate Food Arizona, Frederick LaForge from The Farmer's Truck, and Matt Kleinman from Dot Mobile Grocery. So thank you so much for all you've done to help make the Mobile Market Summit possible. And I'm hoping over the next year we'll be able to get more folks involved in leading these sessions and planning for future summits as well. So I'm going to end there and pass it on to Megan to continue with the welcome.
Thanks, Lucia. Hey everyone, I'm Megan Wong. I'm part of the organization About Fresh based in Boston. There I'm the program director of Fresh Truck, which is our mobile market. About Fresh is about 8 years old, and we work to integrate food access programs into community healthcare systems. I'm really excited to be here, really excited to have so many people joining. A little disappointed that I can't see you in this view, but hopefully you guys will feel comfortable participating in the chat throughout the 2 days because we really, and in the networking sessions, because we really want to hear from you guys as well. So I was part of the organizing committee this year. I was also part of the organizing committee last year. And last year at this time during the conference, I was also giving these opening remarks. And the atmosphere was just saturated with the uncertainty of COVID. I mean, 2 weeks before that, we had made the decision to move the event that we had been planning in person to moving it virtual. There's so much uncertainty around how COVID was spread, the length of its incubation period, who should get tested, what symptoms could result from infection, and a lot of food organizations and mobile markets, including my own, had temporarily closed, and we were all awaiting guidance on how to safely reopen. I think in those days, we all left our offices holding out hope for a short 2-week break from the normal cycle of work, a break from the daily commute, and a chance to spend a little more quality time at home. We bid farewell for now to our work blankets, our comfy shoes, and our office snacks, expecting that in a quick 2 weeks' time, we'd be back to the grind. And of course, as the pandemic unfolded, the effects became very clear. Many of the systems that had historically underserved, under-resourced, and marginalized minority groups and communities of color worked double and triple time. People were furloughed or laid off. Others watched their savings dwindle, and still others faced increased risk of COVID infection due to their work or their living circumstances. Black, Latino, and Indigenous populations were 2 to 3 times more likely to be hospitalized or to die from COVID. Schools closed, placing the responsibility of educating youth on remote teachers and on parents who are forced to simultaneously balance work, childcare, and household demands. Along with the nation, we all witnessed our food system's longstanding dysfunctions, failures, and limitations as the pandemic almost instantly and disproportionately impacted these communities. People were forced to stand in long food lines, many who had never stood in a food line before, Sources of fresh and shelf-stable goods dried up for safety net food programs, and household food budgets came into conflict with budgets for other necessities. But unfortunately, these effects are nothing new. And through all of this, we saw some spots of inspiration. Individuals and organizations came together. They rose to the challenge of filling the gaps in need. Financial support came in to support local businesses and unemployed workers struggling to stay afloat. Safety measures were put in place and protective equipment was obtained to reduce the risk of infection to those working in frontline occupations. COVID tests were made a little bit more available, and the information about how to access them was also shared widely. Remote teachers made do with their virtual classrooms, and some school districts even pushed for at least some in-person learning opportunities. And food organizations designed impromptu food distribution systems centered on the needs of their minority populations and communities of color. For COVID positive households and those unable to go out, makeshift home delivery services popped up. Mobile markets and other food groups adapted their operations according to new safety standards. And time again, and I saw this over and over again with my team and with other groups we were working with, the people working in the food space showed up for their communities, doing whatever they needed to in their job description or not, to make sure that the families and individuals that they worked with had food to put on the table. But again, unfortunately, the need for this response is also nothing new. So while we know much more about the virus now, what remains is the uncertainty of recovery, how long it'll take, who will be slowest to recover, how we can ensure successful recovery for communities we serve, and what the new normal looks like. And as vaccines begin to roll out, we're all planning for that return to a hopeful new normal. But how people have had to access food over the past year, and even before that, isn't really a normal that we want to return to. Collectively, we can redefine a post-pandemic normal, and through our work, build systems that sustain access to fresh food and prioritize people's health and happiness. So over the next 2 days of the summit, I hope that you can think about the ways that your mobile markets and organizations can narrow the health and opportunity gaps that our communities face, push for policies that better equip the food system to work for minority populations, and uplift the voices of those that we serve. And our hope here at the summit is for everyone to learn and adopt tools that you can take back to each of your organization's workbenches and continue the work to deconstruct our current food system and rebuild a better, more equitable food system. Let's together build a food system that is something new. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to the UB team to transition to our next session. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Megan.
Hi, everyone. I just would like to encourage everyone to click over into our link for our keynote with Davida Davison. You received an email about this, and it's also linked on the Hay Summit page as well. So we're going to switch over to that link right now, and I'll see you over there. Thank you.